Hello, welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here with my producer Teddy, who seems like he is fast asleep on this chair next to me, but is actually watching everything I'm doing very closely. And we are here today to look at the Washington Post's 50 notable books of 2025. I took a little bit of a break because I looked at the Washington Post's 10 best books of 2025. I will link that video down below, as well as my reaction to the New York Times's 100 notable books of 2025 and the New York Times Book Review's 10 best books of the year. Those will all be down below. So after I did those three, I figured let's give it a week, take a break. But I did want to talk about the Washington Post's 50 notable books because I have not gone through the list, but I love doing this. It helps me discover new books. Hopefully it will help you discover new books. The books you are interested in from this list may not be the same as the ones that I am interested in. That's okay. That's what makes this whole thing fun. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Here we are at the beginning. You can see they've highlighted some titles here, and obviously those are going to be on the list. And I don't really think there's anything entirely surprising here, at least not for me. Let's start going through the list. All right, the first book is Amity by Nathan Harris, a book that I have not seen much about since it actually published. Nathan Harris wrote The Sweetness of Water, which was an Oprah book, and this one had a much quieter reception. Let's see what they say about it. The author of The Sweetness of Water returns to the postbellum period with this Western about June and Coleman, a formerly enslaved sister and brother who are separated by circumstances beyond their control. Their reunion will depend on Coleman's ability to traverse the lawless American frontier and Mexican desert, where dangers are a constant. I am happy to see this showing up here. As I said, it really did not show up much of anywhere after it actually published, and it is a book that I am interested in reading. I have an advanced reader's copy from the publisher. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And the fact that everything went so quiet after it was published kind of made me forget about it, if I'm being honest. So it's nice that this list is putting this book back on my radar and reminding me, hey, this is something that you want to read. Let's move on to the next book. The Antidote by Karen Russell. This was on the long list for the National Book Award for fiction. I can't remember if it was on the short list, but I think it might. I think it was. It's funny, that was not that long ago, but I'm already kind of forgetting. So Karen Russell was a Pulitzer Prize finalist for Swamplandia, which is right there on the cover. And I read that book. I thought it was a promising debut. I don't know that I would have made it a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, but, you know, and she has published short story collections since then. And I have only read one of them. And it has a story in it that has stuck with me. But otherwise, actually, I've read two. Have I read two? No, only one of her story collections, Vampires in the Lemon Grove. I have an advanced reader's copy of The Antidote. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but kind of similar to Amity. Although I've had more reminders about The Antidote, I feel like this is one that I would be curious to read. I have heard mixed feedback on it, but I'm still curious. Here's what they say about it. Russell's novel is a dazzlingly original and ambitious telling of American history. Through the lives of an eccentric cast of characters and some instances of magic, the story aims to illuminate the whole history of white settlement. It's packed with a whiff of Steinbeck's grandeur, a murder mystery, a Dickensian story of a missing baby, a warning about climate change, and even a talking cat. Karen Russell can be a bit of a weird storyteller, and I think all of those elements kind of give you the sense of that, but she can also be a very powerful storyteller. So let's keep going. Are You Happy? Stories by Laurie Ostland. I have not heard of this book, so let's find out what it's about. There's not a word out of place in these brilliant Midwestern sketches, lonesome and run through with the hallmarks of LGBTQ experience. I am listening. Ostland's protagonists have parents who never accepted them and colleagues they never told about their significant others. But these stories can be funny, even hilarious too. All right. I'm going to look this book up as soon as I'm done filming because I immediately want to read that. Immediately. Let's keep going. Audition by Katie Kitamura. Not surprised to see this here. I was not a fan of this book. I probably was destined not to be a fan. It's the type of story I'm not really a fan of. Here's what they say. Kitamura's latest is narrated by an unnamed actress who meets a young man claiming to be her son. As their relationship develops, feelings of unreality and dread start to fray the fabric of the narrator's world. The resulting slow burn psychological thriller is full of sly reflections on the nature of storytelling and identity. So I'm just not a fan. Maybe you will enjoy it more than me. All right, now we have Bring the House Down by Charlotte Runcie. I have no memory of what this book is about. I remember the cover. Let's find out together. When the theater critic at a London newspaper takes the maker of a one-woman show back to his place for the night, he fails to mention that he has just sent a scathing review of her Fringe Festival performance to her editor for publication. Now I remember what this is about. The omission creates an uproarious chain reaction that will complicate the critic's career and turn the actress into a viral star. It sounds like a romp, and so I could be persuaded to read this book. I don't have immediate plans to do it. I had clearly forgotten about it, but I could be persuaded. If you've read it, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. And recommend other books. If people are interested in Bring the House Down, what else should they read? All that manner of good things. All right, next is Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. I started this book and have not finished it. I need to get back to it. Hopefully before the end of the year, but that's getting really tight. They say, Ryan's heartfelt historical novel follows two likable yet fallible couples living in a small Ohio town from the end of World War II through America's bicentennial. As their lives collide in unexpected and occasionally ill-advised ways, the choices they make and the secrets they keep will have repercussions for them and their children. I've heard so many good things about this book. I do want to get back to it. I just haven't gotten back to it yet. Oh, I'm really excited about the next one. It's The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. I really enjoyed this book. I listened to it on audio. It is fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. Here's what they say about it. Evans's surprise bestseller tells the story of septuagenarian Sybil Van Antwerp, a retired law clerk, mother, and grandmother. The tale unfolds through letters and email messages that gradually reveal the loves, losses, and choices that help explain Sybil's prickly tone and make her more human. I love this book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's just very good. Let's get back into it. Culpability by Bruce Holsinger. I've heard of this. I've seen the cover. Don't remember what it's about. Let's find out. The irresistibly anxious novel taps into our modern nightmares about artificial intelligence while harking back to morality tales of yore. It all begins with a fatal car accident during which a teenage boy is driving, or really monitoring, the family minivan. Afterward, the boy's father must reckon with who or what was really at fault. Sounds interesting. If you have feedback on it, let me know in the comments and we can kind of go from there. Oh, The Director by Daniel Kellman. This was on the New York Times 100 Notable. It immediately jumped out to me from there as something that I would be interested in. And then it was on the New York Times 10 Best Books of 2025. And I recommended that my library purchase a copy. I don't think they have yet. Hopefully they will, because I'm very curious to read this book. I think it might also be on Libby as an audiobook, so I might be on hold for it there. I don't exactly remember. Here's what they say about it. Blending fact and fiction, Kellman I'm not doing well. Blending fact and fiction, Kellman delves into the life of G.W. Pabst, an influential filmmaker who worked with stars such as Greta Garbo and Louise Brooks. The book focuses on the dilemma he faced during World War II and how his choices affected his career and reputation. Sounds so interesting. I would be very curious to read that book for myself. I've skipped a couple of books, and we're going to stop at Alita by Kirsten Sundberg Lundstrom because I have never heard of this book. I love the kind of ominous trees on the cover. Let's see what it's about. Lundstrom's expertly crafted novel begins in 1951 when a mysterious, seemingly feral girl appears on a small, forbidding island in Puget Sound. Bernadette Baston, a scholar of child development, is asked to consult on the case. What follows is both an incisive look at society's constraints on women and girls and a twist-filled mystery. This sounds like it could be intriguing. If you have read it, please let me know what you thought of it, because this is definitely something that my radar missed, and I would be very curious to know how it is. Endling by Maria Reva. I think a lot of people are going to be thrilled. I haven't read this yet, but I kind of stalled out on the Booker long list because I really wasn't enjoying anything. Endling is one of the books I would still like to catch up to because I've heard a lot of really good things about it. And let's read the description of it just to be thorough. Reva's remarkable debut novel animates the devastation of Ukraine since the Russian invasion in 2022. The story is centered on a biologist's quest to save the last remaining snail of a species. Reva tests the boundaries of storytelling with inventiveness and humor, despite the bleak subject matter. I don't know why I'm not doing well with reading today. I'm just not. I didn't sleep well last night. Maybe that's it. So I would love to read Endling. If you have feedback on it, please let us know, or recommendations for where people can go after they read it. I'm just going to tell you that Flashlight by Susan Choi is on the list next, and I'm going to leave it at that because I think I want to focus a little bit more on books that are discoveries for me. You may already be familiar with them, but hopefully they would be discoveries for you too. So let's skip past that one. God and Sex by John Raymond, a novel. I have never heard of this book. In the midst of a terrifying crisis, a minor writer of spiritual texts asks God for a miracle. When God grants it, the man must employ his makeshift theology cobbled together from bits of Christianity, pseudoscience, and New Age platitudes to deal with the repercussions of what he believes he was given. Sounds like it could be interesting. I'm not immediately compelled. If you've read this, let me know what you thought of it and let everybody else who might be watching know as well. I'm not going to linger on A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar. This is absolutely a book that I want to read. It was a finalist for the National Book Award, and I absolutely want to read it. I've heard a lot of really good things about it, and I'm very much excited to read this. I just got a copy. Spoiler for the Friday Reads, where I'm going to mention that. And spoiler for my book haul that will be at the end of December. Okay. And I guess if you want to know what it's about, you can just pause it right there. Heart Be at Peace by Donal Ryan. Now, I have not read Donal Ryan yet, but I really want to because his books have been very highly recommended to me. This is a beautiful cover as well. Winner of the Irish Book of the Year. Here is what they say about it. Ryan's eloquent tale explores how contemporary problems, social media, drugs, affect a small town in rural Ireland. The story emerges slowly as each character contributes a confessional strand to the tangled connections among them. Like I said, I've heard a lot of really good things about Donal Ryan, but I haven't read him yet. I feel like I would start with like Strange Flowers or Dirt Island. I think I have a copy of Dirt Island and Strange Flowers. So I would start there. But if I like those, I would definitely be open to exploring more of his work. I just keep hearing good things. So very exciting to know that there's another one out there. I will just tell you, Heart the Lover by Lily King is next. Lily King wrote Euphoria, which was a New York Times Best Book of the Year whenever it was published. I discovered it off of the Best Books of the Year from the New York Times that year, and I read it, and I remember liking it. I don't remember too much about it at this point because it's been a couple of years, but I remember really liking it. And Heart the Lover is a book that a lot of people are responding to. I haven't read it. I feel like I could easily be convinced to get on the train and read Heart the Lover by Lily King. And let's just say, if you want to know what it's about, there, pause. And Isola by Allegra Goodman. I am very excited to catch up to this book. It came out early in 2025, and I am really looking forward to getting to it. Again, hopefully by the end of the year, but the end of the year is rapidly approaching. In the 16th century, an orphaned young woman struggles to survive after her sinister caretaker drags her on a journey that leaves her stranded on an island. In an avalanche of adventures, Goodman renders a richly real-world, graphic and palpable, from aristocratic estate life to the most wretched human suffering. I've heard so many good things about it. I can't wait to catch up to it. The Land in Winter by Andrew Miller. We can blow right past this one. I was not a fan. It was on the short list for the Booker Prize, and it is one of the ones that I read. It's fine. It's not a bad book. I didn't really enjoy it, if I'm being honest. And because it was part of the Booker Prize, I'm willing to bet you know what it's about or more about it. So we're going to keep going and look for more discoveries. And I'll just tell you that The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny by Kieran Desai is next. That was also on the shortlist for the Booker Prize. I haven't read, I DNF'd that one. I tried it and I really could not get through I would say the opening of the book, but I made it like almost 3 hours into the audio and I was not into it. So there. And we knew that The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny was going to be here because it was on the featured image for this article. All right. Make Your Way Home by Carrie R. Moore, a story collection. This looks like it would be a Tin House book, but I have nothing to back that up. Oh, yes, I do. There it is. Tin House. Just from the cover design, I could tell. Anyway, the summer mama and I share pregnancies. The cottonmouths come crawling out of the marshes. This opening sentence from one story captures much that is remarkable about Moore's debut collection: an intense focus on the complexity of family ties, a confident narrative voice, and vivid Southern settings known from both personal experience — Moore was born in Georgia and lives in Texas — and deep research. The collection comes with a lengthy bibliography. That sounds like it's really interesting. I think when I'm done filming, I will have to remember to come back and look up some additional reviews of this book, see if my library has it, because I could easily be convinced to read that one. And there's an ad, so I'm going to skip over the ad and we'll pick up after that. Here we go. Mothers and Sons by Adam Hazlitt. This is a book I would really like to catch up to. This one also came out early in the year. Here is what it says. A work-obsessed asylum lawyer takes on the case of a young gay man and finds himself revisiting long-repressed memories. Hazlitt, one of the most psychologically astute fiction writers in America, complicates this novel beautifully by threading in chapters about the lawyer's estranged mother and her similar focus on the lives of others. I have only read one book by Adam Hazlitt. It was the first one that he was nominated for a Pulitzer for. I can't remember if he's a two-time Pulitzer finalist or a one-time, but his first was for a story collection called You Are Not a Stranger Here. I was not a huge fan, but I have heard great things about his subsequent books, Imagine Me Gone and this one, and because of the gay angle in particular, I am very interested in catching up to this book. All right, The Nimbus by Robert P. Baird. I have never heard of this, but I am a big fan of the author's last name. One quiet afternoon on a university campus, a 2-year-old boy starts to glow. Thus begins Baird's debut novel, which is at once a realist and satirical campus novel and speculative science fiction, depending on how one looks at it. The novel alternates between the eyes of different characters trying to make sense of the boy's glow, including his father, a divinity professor. It sounds like it could be interesting. It doesn't immediately grab me. And if you've read it, I would love some feedback. Just let me know, and we can kind of go from there. Nova Scotia House by Charlie Porter. I have heard of Charlie Porter. I have not heard of this one. Porter's first novel is narrated by Johnny, a 45-year-old in London's East End. He's recalling a life-changing relationship he had decades earlier as a teenager with an HIV-positive man who was 45 then. The novel vividly recounts London at the height of the AIDS crisis in the late 1980s and early 90s and is written in an urgent, careening style. Okay, well, Charlie Porter is... I think I was thinking of Andrew Porter. My bad. But that sounds fascinating. So I'm going to look into that one, pull up some extra reviews, see if my library has a copy, and go from there, because I'm sold. And I had never heard of that book before. So this is why I do this. I love going through and finding things that slipped by. And maybe we'll find some more before the end. The Original by Nell Stevens. I do not think I've heard of this one either. Let's see what it's about. Set in a stately English country house on the cusp of the 20th century, this novel centers on Grace, an aspiring art copyist with several burning secrets. When a man appears on the estate claiming to be her long-lost cousin, Grace is forced to wrestle with questions of identity, honesty, and truth. Sounds like it could be very interesting. So, anybody who's read this, please hit the comment section. All right. I'm not going to linger on Palaver by Brian Washington. That was a finalist for the National Book Award for Fiction. And because Brian Washington has been a fairly popular author, I feel like you probably are familiar with his work. If you want it, here is the description of it. And let's just go on to Pan by Michael Clune. Okay, sorry. I got a work call, so things might look a little different right now on the screen, but we're picking right back up where we left off with Pan by Michael Clune. At the dawn of the 1990s, a teenage boy begins to suffer from panic attacks that convince him he is being possessed by the spirit of the Greek god Pan. Clune delivers a debut novel that is at once startlingly funny and radiantly, if here and there a little perplexingly, strange. Sounds like it could be interesting. If you've read it, let us know. Very intriguing cover design as well. And then we have The Pelican Child by Joy Williams, which had been on the long list for the National Book Award for Fiction. Joy Williams is a renowned short story writer, and this is a short story collection. The 12 stories in Williams's latest Knockout collection feature people who drive themselves and others mad as they consider the directions of their lives. But because it's Williams, these characters are never so despairing that they can't laugh at the absurdity and unfairness of things. Which I would be very interested to catch up to this book. All right, I have not heard of this one. Perspectives by Laurent Binet. In 1557, scandal ensues after an artist is murdered in Florence and authorities find a nude painting of Venus bearing the face of Duke Cosimo de' Medici's daughter. Binet's prose, the book is told in letters, crackles with the energy of an art history class, and the author takes an infectious delight in the unique qualities of Renaissance Florence. I think I'm going to look up some reviews of this book and see if I can find out some more about it. Playworld by Adam Ross. I have heard of this book. I haven't read it. I could be convinced to do it. I'm not going to read the description. If you want, you can just pause it right here. I'm going to move on to The Satisfaction Cafe by Kathy Wang. I think I have the audio of this book, and it was recommended by Ann Patchett in one of her Laydown Diary videos, and it sounded very interesting to me strictly from that. Here's what they say about it. All her life, Joan would be one to face a difficult problem fully and plainly, Wang writes in the opening pages of her winsome third novel. Watching others grasp the depth of Joan's resolve is one of the many pleasures of this upper crust satire, which follows Joan over the course of several decades. Ann Patchett recommended. That's what got me interested in it. If you've read it, I'd love to know what you thought of it. All right, I'm going to skip to 6 Weeks by the Sea by Paula Byrne because I have not heard of this book. Based on a wisp of a true story, this historical novel by a Jane Austen scholar imagines a love affair for the famously single novelist. Written in the style of Austen and the idiom of her time, the narrative centers on a summer that the family spent in the seaside town of Sidmouth, England. That sounds like it could be interesting. If you've read it, let everybody know what you thought of it. I'm skipping a little bit as well, so I'll just tell you, if you want the full list, I will link it in the description box. But Stag Dance by Tori Peters, the author of Detransition Baby. In this follow-up to Detransition Baby, Peters offers shorter fiction about people trying to distance themselves from the objects of their derision and desire. Peters doesn't write tidy representatives of trans identity, but instead crafts complex, in-process people for whom gender is only one experience among many. I haven't read Detransition Baby. I've heard so much mixed feedback about it that I'm not sure. I had been thinking perhaps Stag Dance would be a better entry point. If you disagree, let me know. But I that is what I am thinking I might try to do. Okay, we're gonna skip a little bit. The Sunflower Boys by Sam Walkman sounds somehow familiar. Let's see what it's about. Inspired in part by stories he heard while volunteering at a camp for Ukrainian children in Romania, Walkman's novel confronts the horrors of the Russian invasion of Ukraine as they're experienced by a frightened 12-year-old boy, a revealing and heartrending account of the human costs of war. Ooh, that could be very interesting. I think I might look up some extra reviews. Tartufo by Kira Jane Buxton. This book is very charming. I would recommend it. Joel and I both read this and enjoyed it back in February, I think, and it's a lot of fun. There's basically... You have a dying town in Italy, in Tuscany, obviously, based on the way it looks. And they are trying to figure out what to do. And then a dog finds a giant truffle, a giant truffle. And things spin out of control from there. Theft by Abdulrazak Gurna was on the featured image for this list, so I'm not entirely surprised to see it here. Abdulrazak Gurna won the Nobel Prize for Literature just a couple of years ago. And I haven't read any of his work yet, but I would like to catch up to him. All right, let's find out what Theory and Practice by Michelle de Kretzer is. This bristling and formally inventive novel centers on a Sri Lankan-born woman who leaves her job in market research to attend a graduate program in English literature in Melbourne. There, she grapples with unexpected questions about herself and how to reconcile the certainty of theory and the messiness of practice. That sounds like it could be interesting as well. This seems like a very solid list. I mean, obviously, some of the books that I have read, I wasn't keen on, but, all in all, this seems like a very interesting list with a lot to offer a lot of different people. I haven't seen too much genre. I mean, we've gotten a little bit of science fiction, a little bit of romance, but nothing that's more in the genres themselves, things that just kind of touch with those subjects. All right, I have never heard of Wolf Bells by Lenny Zumas, so let's see what this is about. Wolf Bells takes place in a ramshackle mansion that plays host to an eclectic group of diverse residents, along with young people of various races and sexual identities who help out. The community's principles are challenged when a 13-year-old girl and her autistic cousin arrive seeking refuge. I may look up some additional reviews of this one as well. So I feel like my TBR is growing and growing a lot from this list, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just that, readers know the never-ending TBR is a whole thing. So let's continue on our way. Your Steps on the Stairs by Antonio Munoz Molina, translated from Spanish by Curtis Bauer. I don't think I've heard of this, so let's see. When Munoz Molina's novel opens, its narrator is waiting for his wife to arrive at their new home in Lisbon. And as the story continues, he just keeps waiting, accompanied only by his beloved dog, Luria. Along the way, we travel deep into the narrator's mind and slowly discovering a story to which even he has blinded himself. The reason he's behaving as he does remains ambiguous until the book's final pages. Well, that sounds mysterious. Could be interesting. I don't know that I would run out and get a copy, but it could definitely be interesting. And that was actually the last book. I skipped a lot, as I said, so if you want the full list, it's going to be linked down below. Washington Post does have a paywall. I don't know if you can get around that, but let me know if there's anything on the list that I didn't cover that you would recommend. If there's something that's not on this list, if you can see the whole list that you would recommend, and just recommend books to people, other notable books from the year that you would like to shout out in the comment section. Let's make a resource in the comments for people to use and discover great new books. And there was a lot of good fiction here, or interesting sounding fiction to discover. So I'm going to leave it at that. I will be doing a video about Publishers Weekly's Best Books of 2025. I don't know if Time Magazine has released theirs yet because I haven't looked, but I'm hoping to do those. I just wanted to spread things out a little bit in the month of December. So, as always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.